Hi, and welcome to this session. You probably know us, but my name is Peter Boring, and with me I have...
My name is Mike Borch-Cardona, and we're going to talk to you about customization in Business Central. Now, Business Central has powerful customization tooling that is built into the web client and really allows our customers to adapt quickly, to change to their needs. It's this highly interactive and very immersive experience that is baked into the client. And really, because it's in your browser, it's alongside the data that you have loaded up, you get this instant sense of how your changes look and feel and behave alongside your data.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's all about empowering people to quickly optimize their experience for how they work or how their business operate.
And that's why we are super excited today to present this new capability, this addition to our UI customization tooling, which is the ability to add existing table fields to your pages, to optimize your pages. And we really think that this is going to help our customers get to value faster and at lower cost, which means the overall total cost of ownership of Business Central goes down.
Yes, and not only that, but it also helps scaling our partners, right? Consultants are empowered to do more, and with this we also free up the scarce developer resources.
Exactly, and we should also mention, Peter, that isn't this one of the most highly voted community ideas of all time?
Yes.
I think it's amongst the top 2, in fact.
600 votes or something like that.
Something like that, yes. We should also mention that if we look to modern workforce trends, the trend is towards workers being more willing, more competent as well, to take on these kind of customizations themselves. They feel that they can take on this kind of work and they want to take on this work as well.
Yes, and it's true to our spirit, adapt quickly. So, let's get on with it.
Let's do that.
Yes, so let's look at the agenda for this session. So we'll start out with talking about some of the user experience enhancements that we have introduced that helps you when you're doing personalizations or role customizations or just working in the extension designer. We'll also talk about how you can make fields read-only in the experience. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about the ability to add existing table fields to a page, allowing consultants and end users a quick, no-code way of customizing existing pages. So, Mike, can you talk a little bit about the user experiences?
Absolutely, let's start right there. In fact, this is quite important to understand how to add table fields. It's important to understand how the user experience has changed in Update 23. Keep in mind that whether it's personalization, whether it's role customization, or using the extension designer, this is pretty much the same experience that you have now. Now, each of these give you more transparency into the fields that you want to add to the page, but also, answer questions like, what is this field about? Where does it come from? You'll be able to answer all of those questions thanks to this revised user experience. We've also made it a lot more efficient to work with large tables, which have a lot of fields. In fact, we have some tables that have more than 100 fields, more than 200 fields as well. So we're also supporting scale here for large tables where you need to find the right field at the right point in time. Let's dive into a demo. Let's start right here on the vendors list. I'm going to start by personalizing just to illustrate the experience. Let's go to personalize. Now I'm going to bring up the add field pane, and that slides in from the right-hand side. There we go. And notice, first of all, how the fields listed in the pane here are, they show very little information. They're really just meant to give you a very quick sense of what the field is. So we've got the field caption shown over there. We've got the field data type as well, and the new icon which shows if this is a field that is visible on the page or not visible currently on the page. But sometimes we need more context to decide if this is the right field for me. So as I hover over these fields, you'll notice that we have a new tooltip that appears that gives you some of that context. Let's hover over coupled with Dataverse. Here you can see in the tooltip we have some useful information. We have the caption again, but also because the table field and the page field may sometimes have a slightly different name, we're also showing the alternate name here as well, also known as coupled to CRM. We've got the tooltip in there, the field tooltip as well from the page that explains what this is all about. Now I understand that this field couples the vendor record with an account in Dataverse. And we also share additional information through that tooltip. We've got things like is this specified on the page object, but also where did it come from? This came from the base application. It's defined in the base application by Microsoft. Microsoft is the publisher of this particular field. Now, you'll notice also up here, recommended fields. What does this term mean? Well, we're introducing this term to imply these are the fields that have been added by the developer onto the page. And developers often choose to show the fields that all of their users need, but they'll choose to hide some of the fields that only some of their users tend to need. So that's what we mean by recommended fields in this place. So here, because I am personalizing, I have access to these recommended fields. And to explain even further what recommended fields actually means, you can take a look at the advanced filters here. So recommended fields is kind of a way of filtering the entire list of vendor fields on the vendor table, right? Look at what's in here in these advanced filters. This kind of explains what you see in that list of fields. We see fields that are bound to a table. In other words, they originate from the vendor table in this case. We have fields that are page controls, which means they're actually not bound to a table field. They're actually just bound to a variable. You can also toggle sort of show me only or include only fields from the base objects or from extensions, but also visibility. And these are fully adjustable. So if recommended fields is a good starting point for you, you'd use that. But if you want more control, just to find the fields you're looking for, you'd use this filtering ability. So let's do one little exercise here. I'm going to check fields already shown on the page. And now notice how the list here has been updated. In fact, you'll see that the icons have changed, right? Some fields are hidden on the page. Some fields are visible on the page as implied by that icon. So we're helping you at a glance get a sense of what is this field? But ultimately, all the fields here are presented in a very similar way, just to reduce the amount of complexity as you start using this feature and finding your fields. Let me uncheck that again. Okay, so let's go through a little exercise now that we've understood how the new filter control works. It presents recommended fields, and I can adjust those filters as well. Let's try and add the country region field onto the page. So here it is, country region code. Again, the tooltip will tell me how this works. If I click on country region code in the pane, Business Central will scroll that field into view on the page canvas. It will show it in this way, which implies it's not actually visible yet on the page. I still have one more task to do to make sure I want it to become visible for my users, or for myself in this case, because I'm personalizing. But here you can see it is a recommended field that is shown also in the recommended position, the recommended location on the page. Why? Because again, a developer thoughtfully put it into that place, and now we're helping users make sure that the field they'd like to make visible on the page is in a best possible location. So from here, I can now hover over the field itself and choose to show that field. That is the first way in which I can bring fields onto my page when I'm personalizing. Now, again, keep in mind, this is a field recommended by the developer. It's already sort of coded into the page. I'm simply making it visible. I can reverse that decision as well by hiding it again off the page. And notice how each time the pane on the right will adjust, will adapt. We're trying to create an experience here which feels very physical, as the field on the right in the pane, as that is transferred onto the page, it disappears from the pane itself. I now want to show you an alternate way of bringing fields onto the page. Let's do the same exercise. This time I'm going to drag and drop the field. I'm going to take country region code again. I'm going to drag it with my mouse. And because I'm dragging it, notice first of all how I have a mouse pointer hint that tells me that I'm about to move it to a particular location. It's not the one that the developer originally intended, but that's okay. I've got the flexibility to choose precisely where I want it now. I'd like country region code to show up. Let's put this after the contact field now. There we go. And as I drop, again, same story. It appears in place, the data loads up. So again, I'm seeing the data live as I make changes, and that field has disappeared from the pane on the right. So that's how you can filter to reduce the set of fields, but you can also search for your field, and the two work great together. So here, alongside my filtering, I'm also going to say, find me the country or region code. It's not going to find that field because I've got it on the page. Let's hide it from here again. There we go. So I've got search working with my filters. I found the country region code field. And as I navigate to a different page, for example, here I'm navigating to the vendor card, notice how Business Central preserves my search terms and my filters so that I can continue working on this page as well, because I'm probably performing similar customizations in this case. All right, now in this case, a lot of what I showed you on the list page applies here as well. I'm going to drag the country region code. Let's place it here under zip code. Very well. So it's the same kind of concepts, right? The same way of interacting with things. Once it's here, I can move it to a different location. I've also got the usual menu of capabilities to work with that field and customize it further. But there's a new one. There's a new menu item here, which is about editing or editability. Now, in this case, I'm showing the country region code field on the page, and I can also make it read-only. I can lock editing using this menu item. Now, it's read-only, which means I'm creating visual focus on the editable fields. It's one of those things that I don't want to enter values into, so like this I can easily skip over it. It's a great way to optimize your pages further for readability and also prevent any data editing accidents where you might accidentally set that to something different. Now I can also revert my change. So I'm going to say unlock editing, and now we're back to normal. So now this field can be edited again. So it's very simple. Any editable field, you can lock it, and then you can revert your change by unlocking it. I want to be really clear about what we mean by making things editable here, or unlocking. Unlocking fields is something you would do to a field you have already locked, which means if the developer has already defined on this page, for example, the balance field here, this field is never meant to be editable, you'll notice that I actually don't have the ability to unlock and make this editable. Safety first, we want to make sure we preserve the integrity of our customers' data. And even though these are very powerful tools, we want to make sure that they don't get into a situation where they can edit data they should never be editing, because that may have downstream implications in Business Central. So that was a quick demo of the user experience, but also the ability to lock and unlock fields for editability. Very good. So all of that is available whether you're personalizing your workspace for yourself, whether you're making role-tailored adjustments to Business Central for all users in a role, or if you're designing extensions. Now, we should really switch to what is the star of the show. Let's talk about adding existing table fields to optimize your pages. Now, this is really the very first time in history that we're going beyond the concept of recommended fields. And we're really empowering customers to pick from any fields from that source table that powers the page, including extensions, and bring that into the page so they can consume it, they can read it, they can view it. We are launching this capability in preview with update 23. And let me give you a quick demo of that. Now, adding existing table fields is something you can only do in role customization. So the first thing I will do is I go to my list of profiles, also known as roles. Let's go to that list. I'm going to pick one of these roles. Let's pick the bookkeeper role and just say customize pages. This is going to open up a new tab with Business Central. It's going to zoom into the bookkeeper profile, and now I can begin customizing, which means that any user assigned this profile will be able to see these changes. Let's go to posted documents. I'll go to posted sales invoices. I'll bring up the very same pane. Now, this is the same add a field pane that you saw earlier for personalization, this time for role customization. Notice one very significant change, which is the filter now says all fields. It also says in preview, as I mentioned earlier. But ultimately now, because I'm customizing roles and I've got permission to actually pick from all fields, that becomes a new default view inside the pane, which means now I don't only have recommended fields here, I've got all the fields, including those from the source table. Look at the size of that scroll bar. There are so many more things I can pick from to adjust my posted sales invoices in this case. Now, you also notice if you go to the advanced filters here that one new filter has also lit up, which is table fields not on the page object. That's exactly what these are that we've included here. This is exactly what we're unlocking and empowering our customers to bring onto their pages. As a very quick example, let's go to one of these posted sales invoices. And here I'd like to find the remaining amount. Now this is let's use the tooltip. this is defined on the table. It's only on the table. No developer has added it to this page, but I really need to see the remaining amount on this posted invoice. So what I'm going to do is same thing. I can either click to show it in place. Here, Business Central will add it to the end of the FAST tab or the end of the list, just to give you a starting point where you can choose to sort of display that remaining amount, right? Or I could just drag it into the exact location where I'd like it to show. Let's have it show somewhere here. There it is, remaining amount. Now, because this came from a table, and this is the first time it's been added to the page, you can only get this to a read-only state. Every table field you add will be read-only. In most cases, it'll also load up the data for that field instantly. There'll be a few cases where it does not, so you'll need to refresh or just simply re-navigate back to the page and it'll load up that data. So here you have the remaining amount field for the very first time on the posted sales invoice with that value that I can see alongside all of my other fields. Now, it's the same concept again, whether it's on a card page, a list page, or any other page type, you'd interact with your fields and drop them onto your page in exactly the same way. Now, I'm done with my changes, so I'll hit done. And at this point, all users, again, that are assigned this profile are able to start seeing the remaining amount field on this page. Now, I did this in a sandbox, right? And one benefit of that is because I'm in a sandbox, I can test my changes, I can get others, invite others to test the changes with me as well. And when I'm really comfortable with the changes I've made, I can always export my role customizations and then import them into production at the right point in time. And that's also great from a safety perspective. You know, want to, again, practice safety first, make sure that the changes you're making here are ideal, they have no downstream consequences, and are ready to consume in production. So to tell us more about creating a safe experience, Peter, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. I mean, this is an awesome feature, right? But as Mike alluded to multiple times in the demo, we really wanted to make sure that this is safe for the primary audience of this feature, so consultants and administrators, but also for end users, right? And so first, as Mike mentioned, this is for role customization only, right? We focus on the users who naturally already have some degree of technical understanding. It also reduces the risk of end users, going about and creating disruption, basically by creating pockets of functionality or variability on the pages. And as we saw, it's a way of working in a sandbox and then importing in a production when ready to reduce risk. You export this to AL to inspect. And in the flow here, you can add these things as role customization. If it doesn't fit the specific end user, they can always go and hide that as a personalization afterwards. Then, as we saw, the added fields are read-only. That's a natural fit for list places, but it also removes the risk of unintentional editing in card pages. Then, as mentioned, we introduced a permission also to make sure that you do not have the option to add these fields unless you have the permission. We'll talk about that in a moment. And also, another thing we'll talk more about is that we want to give partner developers the ability to opt out fields so that they cannot be added or are not shown in the fields pane. Maybe they are sensitive or internal or something like that don't really make sense for the end customer to have. If we have a look at the permission, what we've done there is that we added a new add table field to page permission in the D365 profile management permission set. So that fits naturally with the other permissions for profile management. And as I said, for developers, we created a new property on table field, which is called allow in customizations, which you can set to never or always, right? And if you set it to never, we will actually, not include that field. And we can see the impact of that. We have some example code here where in the first version I do nothing. That basically means that it will be available. So in the experience that Mike showed before, that table field can be selected and it can be added in the page, right? But then later, maybe in my versions for the app, I have decided that I would not want to allow this. So I add the allow in customization never in code. And that then means that it will no longer be on the page. I mean, we will take it away even though it was added before. It's going to apply instantly. And it's also not going to be in the list of fields to add. Of course, you can decide at some point that you want to show this again. So again, in code, you set this to always. And that means that then the table field is automatically added back in the UI if it was added before, right? And it will also be available again in the fields list. So there's a couple of things to be aware of. You can add flow fields, and flow fields include calculations, and that could be large calculations, right? So if you add a lot of flow fields to one single page, that could have a performance impact, and it's just something to be aware of or have in mind. Then another thing here is that when you have when you add a table field to a page, it's of course backed by that table field, and so that table field could be removed at some point in the future. Maybe it's a part of a pretending extension, it gets removed, and that's really the same as today. That can happen today. The result is that the field will not show up in the page. We'll just suppress that, and you can use the page customizations troubleshooting page to see any issues that you might have with customizations and rectify those. Also, Mike talked about that we will put in, when you add that field to the page, it will put in data. We are respecting if you use the extended data type masked for example, for passwords, right? So the data for those will not be shown in the page inspector, and the value will be masked in the field when you added it to the page or a list. Now, this functionality does not replace extensions because you can still do many scenarios or more complicated scenarios in extensions that you cannot do with this feature. And that's specifically when you want to have more advanced field behavior. So, for example, you could have properties on both table and pages that do something, right, like validation triggers. And in this scenario that we have where we add a field, you only get the functionality that is on the table field, right? Because there is no existing page field. We create a page field for that table field. So we can only look at that table field. So if it's not good practice, but if you only have, say, validation on the page, other pages that has that field but nothing on the table, you will not get that kind of validation when you add the field to a given page yourself. Then there are certain properties that are today only available on page field. And again, since this is a scenario where we create a new page field, you're not getting this. So that could be tooltips or assist edit, drop-down functionality, etc., because they're usually done in code, right? And you will have to revert to extensions to handle that. There could be scenarios where the field needs to participate in an interaction with other fields. Maybe you have color highlighting with the row style expression, for example, for traffic colors. Maybe you have fields that multiple fields that contribute to totals, or wizards with some control over field logic, etc. Fields that needs to go together. That's business logic as well, and needs to be created in extensions. We talked about that fields will be non-editable. So if you need the field to be editable, you need to add it through an extension today. And then last but not least, we create these as roles, and roles are not organizational wide, right? So if you want something which is really for every single user, then currently you need to create it through an extension. I mean, the alternative is you can of course go in and modify these for all the roles that get exposed to that page. That's the mitigation on this. Now there is, for some of this, if we just go back, you might wonder, how do I know whether there's a difference between existing, having that field in existing pages? Do those pages add some specific functionality that I will miss if I just add that field directly from a table? Maybe, if that functionality is not on a table. Well, there's actually, in this release, a new, very powerful tool that can help you with that. And that is in the page inspection tab. There's a new option called Explore Page in Visual Studio Code. And also on the table fields, there's an option for exploring in Visual Studio Code. And what those links do is that they actually provision Visual Studio for you with everything, with all the extensions that are part of this page. So if you go to the extensions tab, you will see all of the extensions that contribute to this page. We'll create a project with all of those, allowing you to inspect the source there with one click. You don't have to, consultants can do this if they can read code and have Visual Studio Code installed. We have one example here. If you go on the field and you invoke Explore Visual Studio Code, it will directly get you to the source code for the field on the table. If you use the page link on top, you will get to the source for the page. So that's a way for you to compare across pages. Was there any specific functionality implemented on these pages that I would lose if I just added to a new page? So all of this we go through with demo and in detail and we actually renamed that session. So it's not called What's New in AL, but What's New in Developer Tools. I'm sorry about that, but the session code is the same. So go and view that. And if you're a consultant viewing this session, just jump to that section in this developer session. Don't be afraid of that. It's really useful for consultants as well, or mainly. So one last thing here, because we built this for role customization in the client, we also get the same backing functionality in a page customization AL implementation, right? So as a developer, you can now also add page fields and groups in this way. But again, for most scenarios, the page extension would be recommended because that's the way that you can add functionality and code, right? But if you have very simple scenarios as a developer, if you just want to have this out of the box, you can do it in page customizations. So to look back at this session, we reached the end. What did we show? Well, we showed some really exciting features that we hope you like around improving the user experience when you're doing personalization, role customization, and working in the extension designer. We also showed you how you can make fields read-only. And not least, we showed you the ability to add existing table fields to a page to allow both consultants and administrators and end users, a quick no-code way of customizing existing pages.
And this is such a powerful combination of features that we have today, especially for consultants, right? And we've also given control to developers, to administrators, to make sure this is a safe experience. So fantastic. We're so pleased with how it turned out, and we hope you love this feature too. So if you can spare just a few more minutes of your time, we recommend these sessions here where we deep dive into other web client productivity features as well. Also, customization doesn't stop at pushing fields around your page. You can also get to custom data insights using analysis views, and we go into a lot of detail in this session. But also, finally, as Peter mentioned, if you're more technically inclined, we have the whole What's New in Developer Tools session as well for that one. There's plenty more resources. If you're looking to get started with Business Central, follow the buzz on social media, or just engage with the project engineering team such as ourselves. And don't forget, adding an existing field from the table to the page originated as a community idea. So if you've got more great ideas that can enhance our customers' productivity, submit your ideas at aka.ms/bcideas. On behalf of the Business Central team, I really want to thank you for tuning in and see you in the next session.
Thank you.